Welcome to the Wrestling Universe channel. My name is Cosk, and today we are going to be looking at one of the most interesting stories in the history of professional wrestling, the Bloodline story, or more specifically, the recent developments to come with it. A development that some say is the Bloodline story jumping the shark, and some say is the Bloodline story yet again innovating and yet again showing the world how great it is. This video is not going to be taking a side. It's more just a lay of the land. It's going to be focusing on the pros and the cons of the Jimmy Uso heel turn. We're going to start off with a pro because I'm a positive guy. And that is, it adds a new element to the Bloodline story in the sense, for the first time in arguably the Bloodline story's history, or at least to the degree of it currently, the Bloodline's focus is not on Roman Reigns, for better or for worse. Some could argue that the Bloodline should be focused on Roman Reigns, that he's the world champion. But right now it just feels like the focus is on everybody else. It's on Solo Sikoa after getting speared, and more specifically, it's on Jey and Jimmy, the Usos. Now, I think this is... I'm going to take this out the positive side because this is a pro, and that is, it freshens up the Bloodline story. The Bloodline story feels fresh. It's going to this new chapter in its history, the Uso chapter. You have Jimmy Uso, you have Jey Uso, they're the focus, and I think that it could lead to some really, really good storytelling. And more importantly, a really big money match between the Usos. However, is it jumping the line, jumping the shark here? And that's my con here. In the sense that you could argue that this is a good thing, that going this direction, having the Usos be the focus is, it's for the better. But I would argue, or at least looking at the con side of things, I would argue that this is jumping the shark. You had the Cody loss at Mania, and people said that was jumping the shark. And then you have Jey lose, and having Jimmy turn on him in a story that a lot of people are arguing doesn't make a lot of sense. Like, this could be the big turnoff. It's like The Simpsons season 9 of the Bloodline story. At least I think it's season 9. I'm young. But anyways, this is a very interesting time for the Bloodline, I would say. I've been adamant on Twitter that I think it's jumping the shark. I think I exaggerated a little bit about how much it did, because I do think there are positives, which is why I'm making this video. But at the same time, it doesn't really make sense. It feels like they're artificially delaying the storyline for the sake of saying, hey, we have the Bloodline, because the Bloodline has drawn so much money for the WWE in the past 3-4 years, I believe 3, and they don't want to let it go. Roman Reigns, he's reportedly injured. We're going to talk about that a bit later. And even if he wasn't injured, he has a part-time schedule. I wouldn't have been surprised, and I still wouldn't be surprised, especially with the injury news, that if Roman Reigns takes time off, and if they want to continue the Bloodline story, continue the developments, continue to keep it fresh, then they need to keep it on TV. And a positive about that is, with this new focus, Jimmy Uso feels more important than ever. I mean, Jey Uso, I feel, was always destined for main event greatness after this Bloodline story ended. Solo Sikoa, he has a fantastic win-loss record. He's beaten some top names in just a year in the company. Like, he is destined for main event greatness. But Jimmy Uso always felt like the other one. Jimmy Uso always felt like the guy that could really fade away after the story ends, like without Jey Uso. But this heel turn really feels like this is Jimmy Uso's time. And now, with Jimmy Uso at this main event caliber level, with Jey Uso already at that level, with Solo Sikoa rising up to that level, once this Bloodline story eventually ends, now you have 3 main event guys. And I don't know if I could have said that without this angle because I wasn't sure about Jimmy. And now I'm not like 100% sure because this story could always flop. I don't believe it will. I believe this will be a great story, or at least a great story without great reasoning, because I'm still quite torn on the reasoning. But I feel like this is going to make Jimmy Uso a star. And more stars, more main event guys, the better. This feels to me like when the Shield broke up. And instead of this like great faction, you had these great solo guys who have dominated wrestling world today. You see Seth Rollins, world champion. Roman Reigns, world champion. Jon Moxley, the ace of AEW. Like, these guys are top guys now. Could we see a similar fate with the Bloodline? But another negative to me, another con is this the right time? I saw a tweet, or a post, I guess, now that it's X, on X today. And it went on the lines of the WWE were thinking about stretching this up to Mania, but they weren't sure if 35 weeks of build would work, and I would have to agree with that. And not only that, because, you know, like always, not everything has to conclude at Mania. I've been a big believer of that. You don't have to artificially extend every single storyline, so you can say, hey, it's ending at WrestleMania. To me, the bigger question mark around this for me is the Usos' turn happened like a month ago. 2 turns. They turned separately, and they were so recent. And Sami Zayn's turn was only a few months before that. And then you're having Jimmy Uso turn back, and it's like, could this have not waited? If you really had to do the Usos' turn, could you not have had Jey Uso lose clean to the biggest star in wrestling, have Jimmy Uso turn on him for being weak, maybe Jey Uso starts to kind of collapse beneath himself, kind of a Hangman Adam Page-esque story, but without the drinking because it's a PG company. And yeah, I don't think it was a great idea to do it so soon after the other turns. I feel like it doesn't give room for the story to breathe, and that's why it's getting so much hate, because you've just had these turns. If this were to happen with weeks of build, of Jimmy Uso slowly growing frustrated, and then you have to turn, then you have Jimmy Uso strike, give him a good reason, I feel like this could have worked. However, at the end of the day, WWE have to put out 5-7 hours of TV on a weekly basis, and whether you love this or hate this, you are interested to see what happens next Friday when we get the explanation. This is must-watch TV. This continues the Bloodline streak of must-watch TV. And in my opinion, the Bloodline hasn't always been must-watch TV. There's been times where the Bloodline has dragged. There's been times where it's like, get to the next point. And maybe they're going a bit too extreme to the other side of just putting big moment after big moment after each other. But they are big moments that they are making you think. They are making you want to watch. Whether it be watching the TV show, watching clips on YouTube, watching clips on X, or Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter. Yeah, I mean, whether you love it or hate it, this is must-watch TV. However, one of my biggest criticisms of this is Jey Uso, to me, was the last real top guy who has yet to face Roman, who could have realistically dethroned him. And we've seen this time and time again. We've seen this with Drew McIntyre. We've seen this with Sami Zayn. We've seen this with Cody Rhodes. And now we've seen it with Jey Uso, of these top guys who are getting beat by Roman, who really felt like they had a chance to dethrone him. And my question is, who's going to dethrone Roman Reigns? Because personally, and if you disagree with this, that's fine, but I don't want to see Cody Rhodes dethrone him. I feel like Cody Rhodes' time has gone. I feel like while it will be a cool moment, it will be nowhere near the moment it could have been. And now that you didn't have Sami, now that you didn't have Drew, now that you didn't have Jey, is the man destined to dethrone Roman Reigns' legendary streak, legendary reign, going to be someone he's already beaten? Like, personally, I'm not invested in that. Personally, I don't want to see someone who's already lost to Roman Reigns be the one to beat him. I want to see a new face. I want to see a new challenger. I want to see someone Roman Reigns is almost scared of because he's never faced one, because they've risen up to such a large degree. And yes, Jey Uso has faced Roman Reigns in the past. That's how the Bloodline story started. But the character development in that meant that to me, Jey Uso was the guy. Jey Uso has grown since then, whereas if he were to dethrone Roman Reigns back when they had their first matches, I don't think it would have gone well. And now that you had the Jey Uso Roman Reigns match happen at SummerSlam, which if they wanted to dethrone Roman Reigns, they could have extended that further to another date. Although SummerSlam could have worked with a different build, but I digress. And I don't see Cody Rhodes going through this insane character development until Mania. He's still the same guy, just with a bunch of extra wins to his list. So I don't know. I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of this story. I still feel it's going to be enjoyable TV. It's going to be must-watch TV, but I don't think this is the right time for a Jimmy Uso turn. I think that's the right terminology. Like, it's not the right time. I feel like this could have worked, but not right now. You're throwing too many things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And with the greatest story in professional wrestling history, or one of the greatest stories in professional wrestling history, I don't think that's something you should risk. I think this could be damaging to the Bloodline's history if this goes badly. I feel like Jimmy Uso's explanation, which is my most major concern, isn't going to make a lot of sense. Because you had Jimmy turn on Roman, you had Jey turn on Roman, then you have Jimmy turn on Jey because of jealousy. Like, it feels too soon. You haven't really planted those seeds well enough other than Roman saying it, but Roman's a heel. Roman's a liar. So is Roman right? I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think that this was for the best? Do you think this was a bad choice? Let me know in the comments below. I've been Cosk. Thank you for joining me. Have a good day.